Thank you so much for tuning in this afternoon to watch the Circle Harvest Investor webinar. My name is Robin and I'm here representing Birchal, and really I've had the delight of working with Sky here from Circle Harvest and really learning all about this interesting business. And this session here today is so you can learn a lot more about the business right before the investment offer itself launches next week. So today we have a bit of a presentation that Sky is going to be running through, and then at the end of that presentation we're going to be opening up the forum to your questions. So please use the Q&A feature to pop your questions in as and when you think of them, and then we'll pick them up and we'll answer them at the end. Sky, over to you.
Awesome. So I did make some slides today. I'll just share my screen with you guys. All right, so my name's Sky Blackburn. I'm an entomologist and a food scientist, which is a very strange combination, but works really well for us in our business. And in 2007, I founded Australia's first insect protein farm, which is called Circle Harvest. We used to be called the Edible Bug Shop, and our farm is still called the Edible Bug Shop, but we have a fantastic retail brand now that's called Circle Harvest, which you can find in stores all around Australia. Ever since I've been a little kid, I've always been fascinated by creepy crawly things. I've always wanted to be an entomologist. So when I went to uni, I studied entomology, but in Australia, there's not really a lot of jobs in entomology. So I just happened to do a degree in food science at the same time, just so that I would have a career when I left uni, just in case I couldn't get a job in bugs. In 2007, I accidentally learned about the fantastic nutritional qualities of edible insects and kind of felt like I had the perfect combination of skills to convince people that this was a good idea. And the more I learned about them, the more I loved. So we've spent the past 15 years educating people about the amazing health, nutritional and environmental benefits of farming insects as a source of food. And we've got to the point now where we're ready to expand our farm and food processing facility to keep up with the demand for our products. The market is definitely right for us now. We've waited a long time for it, but yeah, we're really happy that we can partner with Birchal to offer it to our biggest supporters and yeah, and all of our customers as well. So as most of you are probably aware, by the year 2050, we need to be able to produce about 60% more food to be able to support our future population. So scientists like myself are working on things like regenerative agriculture, cellular agriculture, algae and seaweed are in there as well, eating more plant-based diets, and definitely insect proteins will be part of the puzzle. So basically, we've been kind of creating more food using less resources. So how we do that is we circle fruit and vegetable waste, which would normally go to landfill, back into our food system as feed for our mini livestock. So here's a little infographic that I've had done up. So you can see we take that fruit and vegetable waste, we convert that into a feed for our insects. We then turn the insects into powders, oils, pastes, and even a milk kind of product, which we can sell to other food manufacturers. We make our own products out of it as well. We run on zero waste as well. So even our cricket frass, which is like the cricket poop, it gets sent back to farms and we make a fertilizer product out of that, and it helps us to improve soil health. So on the sustainability aspects, we can actually farm the insects inside. So we convert unused warehouse spaces into cricket protein farms. And that allows us to reduce our carbon footprint even further, because we don't need to transport the food very far. We don't need to transport the finished products very far. We're in those urban areas. Because we can farm them inside, we can farm them all year round. We can have control over that process as well. And we can actually stack, we have specially designed enclosures that we have for the crickets, and we can stack them on top of each other from the floor all the way up to the roof. So we're using that space really efficiently. The insects themselves as well, they don't waste a lot of energy maintaining a set body temperature like us silly mammals do. They're a little bit more go with the flow. So most of what they eat gets converted directly into body mass. So to give you an idea, if you have 10 kilograms of feed, you can produce about 1 kilogram of beef, or you can produce 9 kilograms of cricket protein. And the protein is actually really high quality protein, and it's not just protein. So it is underselling it a little bit. So if you take something like a cricket protein powder as an example, that's over 68% digestible protein. You've got 4 times the amount of calcium as milk in there, 3 times the amount of iron as spinach. You've got heaps of zinc and magnesium. It's really high in vitamin B12, lots of omega-3, and has a complete amino acid profile. So really everything that your body needs in this tiny little package. We can also produce them really, really quickly. So to get a cow from birth to a stage where you would take it to slaughter takes about 18 to 24 months. For us to get a cricket from an egg to a stage there we would harvest it, it actually takes under 6 weeks. So we're really getting more food, we're putting less stress on our environment, and in a shorter space of time as well. So why now though? What's the time for insect proteins? So traditionally, we haven't been able to farm insects on a commercial scale because we haven't had the technologies to be able to do that. So that's why insect proteins have really dropped out of our diet here in the Western world. Now we actually have the technologies to farm them on a commercial scale, which means we've got a decreased price point, so we can bring it down so it's comparable to other sources of protein. We have a consistent, reliable supply, which means that the ingredients are more desirable for food manufacturers, and we can actually develop products that look and taste delicious that contain insect proteins. So imagine snacking on a bag of corn chips with more protein than an egg, or devouring some delicious chocolate pancakes for breakfast that contain more than half of your daily iron intake. That's my favorite one. Or having some ice cream that has 4 times the amount of calcium as cow's milk. Or having a burger that's made out of crickets that has 4 times the amount of omega-3 as salmon. So when we're talking about the future of food, there's no legs or wings or antennas in there. It's just familiar foods that you would eat all the time anyway. They're just enriched with invisible insect proteins. So we have amazing opportunities in lots of different areas because of the versatility of our products. So we have the $155 billion alternative proteins market. We've got the $98 billion healthy snacking category as well. We've got the $118 billion pet food industry, just to name a few of those markets that we kind of slot into. We are looking at new horizons, which are non-food things that we can supply insect proteins for, including chitin. So these include things like bioplastics, materials for electric vehicle batteries as well, fertilizer products, and even pharmaceuticals and cosmetics. So at the moment, we really do focus on insect proteins for human consumption, but as we scale and we farm more and varied types of insects, then we do have the opportunity to supply these kinds of markets as well. So we have a super duper experienced team of scientists, and all of us have been in the business for 15 years or more. So if there is a team that can do it, it's definitely ours. So I'm a food scientist and entomologist. Tulare is actually an environmental scientist. So she's making sure that all of our claims in regards to sustainability are correct and we're doing the right thing. And she's also an insect diet specialist, which is really handy for us to have on our team because it's important to us that we're circling those fruit and vegetable waste back into the food system, which means that the nutrition of the insects is really, really important to us. Then we have Todd, who's a microbiologist, and he's also a science teacher. Because of our really experienced team, we have the flexibility to stay on top of new and emerging food trends, develop products really, really quickly, and make sure that the science behind our products is actually there as well. we use the media quite a lot, as well as Australia's top chefs, to help educate people around the benefits of insect-based proteins here in Australia. So we've done like the Easter show, we do a lot of things on TV, which is fantastic, and definitely the media have started to put a quite positive spin on eating insects as a source of food and sustainable eating as a whole. One of the things that we're most proud of is our school education program. So for 15 years, we've been running this program where we go into schools and teach kids all about the future of food and what that looks like. So we've had over 1.3 million Australian school students come through that program in the past 15 years. And some of those people are actually adults now that will come up to us at events and say, hey, are you that bug lady? You came to my school when I was in year 5, which makes me feel quite old, but it's really fantastic because when you go and see these school students, you don't actually know if they're taking anything away from your conversation or your interaction, but to see them then as an adult and still remember going through that program and trying edible insects, you know, when they were like 10 or 11 years old, it really does make me so happy. On the picture as well, you can actually see some school students eating crickets, and that's because we have our cricket protein corn chips available in over 1,000 school canteens at the moment. So most of those schools are schools that participate in our Future Food program, and we're having humongous sales through that program where we've got them into schools, which is fantastic because the students are using their own money to make their own choices about food. We also have a book that's out now, and it's in most school libraries already. So it's an Aussie Stem Stars series of books, and that's teaching kids again about what it's like to be a food scientist and what it's like to be Australia's first insect protein farmer, really. So we actually have our retail products available Australia-wide at the moment. It's in a lot of specialty grocers, IGA, Dan Murphy's, places like that. We have over 20 different products that are available at the moment. We have over 50 products that are already finalised the development stage, and we'll be launching them at different times throughout the year when the time is right. So more about our raise. So we're raising money at the moment so we can move into a new larger production site to keep up with the demand for our products. So we're at maximum capacity right now. We'll be implementing automation that we've already developed, as well as artificial intelligence to help us feed, clean and monitor the insects. This will bring down our cost of production quite considerably, and that'll also make this a more desirable product to consumers because it'll be comparable to other sources of protein. We'll be able to increase our production, the amount of production output, as well as reduce our cost. So we've chosen to raise with Birchal specifically because our biggest supporters are our customers, and we want to have you guys as advocates for our business. So Birchal just kind of was a no-brainer for us because we really feel like having you guys on board and having you out there spreading the word about edible insects and insect-based foods is really, really fantastic because we really have a big focus on education within our business, and you guys sharing your knowledge and, you know, being those fantastic brand ambassadors for us is the best thing that we could think of. So the next big thing in food is little, and I suppose everybody has some questions, so we might go through those now.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Sky. It's great to see so much information on your business, and really I think there's probably a bit more to unpack on the scale of the business that you're at now. I think even just from an educational perspective, what was your revenue in your last financial year, and sort of what was your breakdown of sales? Where did you sell most of your produce?
Yeah, so we had about just over 1.5 million in revenue last year. The majority of our sales actually come from our website, through website sales direct to consumers. We've only in the past year started to deal directly with food retailers, so supermarkets, specialty grocers and things like that. So that's quite a new market for us. because we use a very niche kind of product, we didn't want to kind of rush that. And with our old edible bug shop branding, we didn't want to have that available in supermarkets. We wanted to rebrand, but we didn't really know how to do it. So what we actually did was we were lucky enough to be selected as part of the Mars Seeds of Change Accelerator program, and they were absolutely fantastic. They helped us with all of our branding, and we have this new beautiful new Circle Harvest branding, which we're really, really happy to put on supermarket shelves. It really tells our story, but in a more grown-up way than we had before. It feels like still like us, but a more grown-up version of us, which is fantastic. And the new packaging has been doing really, really well.
That's awesome. That's great to hear. Well, look, everybody who's here, please ask your questions in here so we can really get this conversation going. I'll kick off with Lorraine's question at the top. Thanks very much for asking it. How do you account for emissions of energy used in production, transport, and packaging?
Yeah, so it's always something that's in progress with us. So at the moment, we run on 80% solar energy. When we move into our larger production facility, we'll have more space on the roof. So at the moment, we're a little bit limited to the amount of solar that we can take in. But when we move into the new site, we'll actually be running on 100% solar energy, which is fantastic. It's always been a goal for us. We already run on zero waste, so we'll be continuing to be able to do that. And then when we move over to we're actually updating our website at the moment. So when we update to our new website, I'll actually be able to show you your carbon emission for each of the products that you're purchasing. So that's a fantastic app that we found that does that. So it gives people, which is actually a really small amount, which is fantastic. So that shows to get to your door how much carbon, and then you can actually offset that with your purchase as well for probably about 5 or 6 cents. So not really much at all.
Yeah, absolutely. So Simon here has asked a question about the risks and really how Circle Harvest is planning to manage these risks as a business. Over to you.
Yeah, so obviously with any new business, there's always risks involved. So we've kind of overcome sort of the biggest barriers that we would have had, which would have been regulatory risks. So in 2015, we actually, in 2007 we started, but in 2015 we actually got the Food Authority to change the regulations around insect-based foods here in Australia. So the crickets and mealworms that we farm are classed as a non-novel, non-traditional food now, which actually means that they have the same kinds of standards as anything else that you'd purchase in the supermarket, which has really opened the doors for us. Obviously, we're a profitable business, but obviously there would still be risks around cash flow and competition and all those kinds of things that would be standard with any other kind of business.
Yeah, of course. And yeah, I mean, like as any startup goes through its phase of growth, but you've really kind of established your business and taken, I think, a much more conservative approach to growing than a lot of other startups, which sort of continue to raise capital and then go on and continue to grow. But really being in the position that you are in, you have an awful lot of knowledge in the business and you have scaled at a rate where you're now profitable, which is great, and you know, it's self-sustaining for the business. And I think it really presents a better offer for investors when they're coming in, as opposed to a business which is burning an awful lot of cash and really going for gold, but doesn't necessarily have the fundamentals in place.
Yeah, so we've kind of done it the opposite way. So we're all scientists and really didn't know anything about business to start with, but now like we have 15 years business experience as we're learning along the way. But we've actually grown our farm and grown our product range specifically based on the market readiness. So 15 years ago, if we were trying to do this, there was nowhere for me to be able to sell insect protein products. Supermarkets wouldn't take it. Definitely, they wouldn't be in school canteens. So waiting for the market to be right, educating the market, which has been really important for us, and growing with the market has really been the key to our success so far.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got another question here from Verafia, who's asked, who stated, to be a replacement for meat, the products need to be 10 times cheaper. I'd love to hear your rationale for that, because I mean, I'd love to understand sort of consumer data behind that, because I know that there's a lot of meat replacement products out there that are really focusing on the sustainability, and an awful lot of them. And in fact, I know a lot of the people who work at V2, and a lot of the work that they do is around getting the product to just be a little bit cheaper and taste as good as meat. And that's an awful lot of the consumer survey data that they've been collecting on that. So really do add your question in that kind of derives that 10 times cheaper narrative. I'd love to hear that, so we can really unpack that in a bit more detail. But what are your plans in terms of price point, and how do you, of course, you've got price, then you've got taste. Those are the two fundamental consumer decision making skills behind purchasing, of course.
Yeah, so we've already kind of got the taste down pat. So as food scientists, we all know how to develop products, and that's something that we've really done very, very well, is specifically around the taste and the texture of the foods. And that's because we don't want it to be, like a cricket protein bar where you would buy it one time and then because it was novel, but you wouldn't buy it again because it didn't taste nice and didn't really do anything to your body because it didn't have enough cricket protein in it. When we're formulating our products, we really heavily look at the nutrition. We use all natural products as well, so there's no artificial colors and flavors or preservatives in there. We're using all of our food science knowledge to kind of get that shelf life on them without using the preservatives. And then when it comes down to the price point, it means that with the scale, we'll be able to reduce the cost so that it's comparable to other sources of protein. So really, you're getting a higher quality product nutritionally, but at the same price as other sources of protein.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we're not necessarily comparing our protein to meat-based proteins as well. So we're not making, a sausage substitute or a hamburger substitute. We're using different kinds of food. So you can have it in a cookie or a brownie or pancakes, or we do have a burger mix as well, chips. So we're not necessarily competing directly with the meat market. We're more looking at alternative proteins in a different way and in different foods that you would eat. But if you look at the cricket protein corn chips, they're comparable to other healthy kind of corn chips, not corn chips, like healthy vegetable-based chips in the market.
Yeah, no, that's great to hear. And Sam's question is perfect to really segue into, because Sam's asked what your margins are like and how will this change as a result of the investment coming into the business?
So at the moment we've got about 60% margin on our products, and that's because we have control over the entire process from farm to table. We don't use contract manufacturers or anything like that. We even our cricket corn chips, we produce them ourselves in-house, all under one roof. So as we scale, we'll actually be able to bring this up to 70-75% margin on the products.
That's great to hear. That's really quite impressive. That's fantastic. And the question we've got below is if you have any plans to export your products to countries with similar eating habits, such as New Zealand.
Yeah, so at the moment, what we're actually doing is developing country-specific websites to some key locations that we've already identified. So they might be places like South Korea, Japan, the US, New Zealand as well. And because we already have traffic to our website from those locations, but obviously to ship from Australia, it's very expensive. So we will be using like a drop ship option, and then we can kind of get some data from those locations before we launch into retail there. So it is something that we're already doing, but kind of on the bigger scheme of things, we won't always just be farming insects in Australia and shipping them overseas, because that kind of loses the sustainability aspect when you have to ship them so far. But as we kind of identify which markets are most active in this space, we'll be establishing our own brand of insect protein farms in key locations around the world, so we can use their local food waste streams to create local products for them.
Yeah, great. Yeah, fantastic. And I mean, this next question, I completely understand this sort of theme, because if you look at the meat industry and if you're looking at farming of any animals, effectively, there is a risk of disease. In the agricultural industry, you've had so many diseases come through animals as a result of the practices and the animals themselves. But really, like, what are the risks of disease? I have no doubt that you as a team have analyzed this in a huge amount of detail. So really keen for your answer here on
Yeah, so with large scale insect farming, it's really important for us to maintain hygiene, because we have got specifically cricket-based diseases that can come in. We work kind of like a biosecurity area, so nothing can come in or out. All of our staff are quarantine trained as well. So in 15 years, we haven't had any issues. There's also an issue with like pathogens of food safety concerns, so things like E. coli and stuff like that, because we are using food waste. So what we actually did quite early on is process the foods, that the fruit and vegetable waste that we're receiving, in such a way that if they did contain E. coli and things like that, that they would be killed, and so we can introduce them to the colony. So we're not introducing any kind of bacteria or any parasites into the colonies that we have there. All of our colonies as well, I know on the picture it looked like we've got one big warehouse, which is what we do have that, but inside it's actually compartmentalized. So if there's an issue within one of those compartments, we can actually block that off so it doesn't affect our whole colonies. And that means that, yeah, we're keeping the rest of the crickets safe that are there as well. We also send away weekly tests for parasites, microbial tests, as well as chemical tests on all of our products, to make sure that there's no issues coming, because if there's parasites and bacteria and stuff like that in our colonies, it actually affects the health of our crickets, which would affect our yields as well. So we're making sure the products are safe, but we're also making sure our crickets are happy as well.
Yeah, of course, of course. And like, are there any regulatory barriers for insect-based products for global markets? I'm sure that they vary country to country. Of course, focusing on Australia, maybe you can answer that, and then talk about other markets and where you might look to expand to, and what the regulatory requirements are.
Yeah, so in Australia, we're a little bit ahead of the rest of the world. So as I said, in 2015, crickets and mealworms were classed as a non-novel, non-traditional food. So that means that we don't have any regulatory hurdles anymore. We actually work really closely with the Department of Biosecurity and Food Safety to develop the standards that we use for insect farming and insect-based foods here in Australia. So if you just do a quick Google search, they've got this really awesome fact sheet now that you can use to see what's acceptable and what's not acceptable if someone else wanted to come and do this kind of thing. When we're looking overseas, it does vary country to country, and even some of the countries in the Asian region don't have regulations around insect-based foods yet, but places like South Korea and Japan do. In America, they're fine to use as well. New Zealand uses the same food standards as us. In the EU, though, we've actually had a problem at the moment because of Great Britain separating from the rest of Europe. Their food standards are now well behind the rest of the world because they haven't been updating those. So companies that are located in the UK actually can't sell insect proteins anymore when they've been able to do that for about 5 years. So they're in the process at the moment of like updating all their food regulations, which might take another year or a year and a half to be able to do that. But the rest of Europe is completely fine.
Yeah, I'm sure with a few other things going on as well, it'll probably take a little bit longer than that. So we'd love to see that fast track, but yeah, know that it's going to take a little while. And look, the next question that we've got here is great, because we can probably answer it in 3 sections. So Simone here has said, Sky, love your work. A few questions. What's your revenue profit target for the next 12 months? One thing you probably won't see in the offer document is forecasted projections in there, but Sky, I'll send this question over to you so you can kind of talk about what you might be able to achieve as a business. Of course, having been in business for a long time here, and having sold this product for a long time, you have no doubt how much consistent sales you're getting, or as many subscribers you have through the website who purchase your product all the time. So what might this look like on a high level for you?
Yeah, so we have a lot of new customers that are coming on board next year. This includes quick service retail, which would be like takeaway food companies. We've got another 3,000 schools coming on board for our school canteens program as well. And we're working with a few larger food manufacturers to supply bulk ingredients to them, which is something that we haven't really been focusing on. So we'll at least be able to double our revenue from this year, and that would be quite conservative, I feel.
Yeah, right. And I mean, you might, I'd love to develop more into this question and into this topic, really, because asking the second part of this question is effectively what markets are you going to be focusing on to access that additional revenue. I've sort of worked in a space where somebody was very much so focused on consumer products and was stating just how much of a dominance Coles and Woolworths have in Australia, and really how they felt like if you're selling a consumable product, then really you want to be there ultimately. Is that the end strategy for your business? What's your strategy right now? Of course, you've mentioned some distributor networks, but outlets that you're going after. I'd love you to kind of dive into that and really talk about the strategy for getting there, or really just getting in front of as many potential customers as possible.
Yeah, well, I think you'll find that a lot of food businesses at the moment are actually exiting Coles and Woolworths and preferring to go with smaller retailers. So even though it is something that we're always looking at, it won't be something that we'll be pushing into really quickly, just because the terms might not be right. We want to get the pricing right and things like that. So even though it is something that we're looking at exploring all the time, going into Coles and Woolworths, and we have been in Woolworths before. Our cricket protein was actually available in the macro aisle in Woolworths. We have kind of decided as a business after that experience that it's not the best place for smaller businesses. So that's why we've kind of shifted our focus. We're working a lot with the QSRs. We're working a lot with the school canteens and the specialty grocers. So some of our the people that we have on our specialty grocers with the super IGAs and things like that, they have over 450 stores. So being in Woolworths and Coles is fantastic if the conditions are right, but we're not really focusing our efforts on that at the moment.
Okay, no, completely understand.
There's a lot of more low-hanging fruit where we can have like higher margins than the deals that you get with Coles and Woolies.
Yeah, of course. And like with sorry, I'm just pulling up on this other question here that was fairly related to that. Introduction. So there was a question actually which came up before around when you were talking about the market sizes. Was that one that was specific to the global market sizes, or was that just Australia alone?
No, that's global market size.
Right. Yeah, I thought so. That's great to clarify. And that's super interesting in terms of your approach to the business itself. But ultimately, yes, you want to make sure that you're going after those low-hanging fruit opportunities and trying to maximize value for the business itself. Had a question here just from Raf to say, you say you're not you say your products are not positioned as a meat replacement. To get people to move away from meat, you have to replace their steaks and sausages. Snacks won't work. Meats are available at about maybe $20 per kilogram. Your products are $100 to $200 per kilogram. Hence the question about reducing the price. Do you want to clarify on that one?
Yeah, so if we look at it on a per serve basis, which is probably a better basis to do it by. If you have a steak, just think about how much you would pay for a steak in the supermarket. A serve of cricket protein is under $3. So it works out a little bit more cost effective at the moment if you're just using the cricket protein powder as an example. And that's because it's actually more nutrient dense. So you don't need as much of it to be getting the same kind of result. So the cricket protein powder is like 68% digestible protein. If you take like beef jerky as an example, so that's the dried version, that's only about 22% protein. So I think the way that we're brought up, we feel like we need to eat a lot of food to feel full, which is not actually the case. Your body just needs the nutrition to be able to feel full. So you don't need to eat a lot of cricket protein to be getting the same effects as you would. So comparing the price of meat per kilo and the price of cricket powder per kilo doesn't really work out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, even to that point as well, there are other companies who are directly competing with the meat companies and trying to provide direct replacements. You've clearly stated that you're not directly competing with them. You're a different product. You're trying to provide a different sort of business model here. And there are a lot of businesses that produce FMCG products, and ultimately, they might just be doing it the old way. You're doing it in a slightly different way. And that means there's education. So hence the slow sort of growth business that you've had. And there's still a lot of education to do. Do you find that that's probably that sort of a major barrier to your growth as a business? Has it been in the past? You've done so much work on this, though, that I imagine that you've been answering this from year one. So
Yeah. Well,
asking.
definitely, when we first started doing this, if we were at a food show, it would be like there's a force field around us. People would not want to come and engage with us, which was a bit disappointing, but, you know, understandable because people didn't know about it. Probably in the last 5 years, that's definitely changed. And that's why we feel like the time's right for us to do a raise now, because consumers really want healthy, nutrient dense, local, sustainable kind of foods to feed their families. And insect proteins really do tick all the boxes. We're in an age where we have all this information available at our fingertips now. So when we first started doing this, people would say, what are you doing? And didn't really understand. Now people come places because we're at events, because they want to try it and because they want to learn about this new source of protein. And we don't even have to tell them what we do. They come and they already know they're coming there because it's something fantastic that they've heard about on the internet, and they want to learn more about it and they want to try it.
What group of people have you had the most success with in that regard?
You know what? It's so varied because there's just I get asked this question all the time and I can never ever answer it, because we have so many school students that are purchasing now. Then we have like mums that are wanting things for their lunch boxes that are more nutrient dense than the version of what they can get for them. Then we also have a lot of older Australians now, which haven't really been on our radar in the past, but the older Australians are looking at alternative proteins now because they want more nutrient dense foods. They can't digest meat as easily as they could before. They don't want to have large portion sizes, but they're losing muscle mass. So they want sources of proteins that they can only eat a little bit of it, but it's digested really easy and it's helping them maintain their brain health and their muscle health as well. So we've been working really closely with one of the hospitals here in Sydney to develop a diet made out of cricket protein specifically for dementia patients with diabetes, and older patients that are having trouble swallowing.
Yeah, that sounds great. It sounds like you've got so many different ideas and different routes to go down as a business, and what you choose ultimately has to make commercial sense for the business moving forward. But it sounds like you've got a lot of applications for.
And you know what? Like, our business hasn't been like this from the very beginning. We've really been flexible and we've grown and changed with the market over time. So when we first started doing this, we focused more on novel products, so things like lollipops with bugs in them and chocolate coated bugs and things like that, because that's what the market was ready for. But as we've grown and consumer mindset has changed, we've gradually changed our product range. We've changed how we educate people as well. And that's kind of how we've continued to grow due to our flexibility.
Absolutely. And will you need to actually, I won't ask that question. I'll ask the one below because it's perfectly in line with the conversation that we're having right now. A key aspect for insects to be considered as an alternative to beef, lamb, pork, chicken is education and diffusion of cooking recipes that deliver delicious and satisfying meals. Is Circle Harvest working on this?
Yeah, so So the reason that we didn't want to continue with Woolworths and the macro kind of products is because they weren't doing any consumer education around how to use cricket protein powder. So it's kind of like hemp powder, right? You know that hemp powder is really good for you, but how the hell do you use it? It's the same thing with cricket protein powder. How the hell do you use it? So I know because I use it all the time. So that's why we've actually developed products like pasta and granola and corn chips, so people don't have to work out how to use it. It's already in a product that you know how to use. You just cook the pasta the same way as you cook your normal pasta. If you're making a cookie mix, you just make it the same way as you would make your normal cookie mix. And it really gives people confidence when they're using a new ingredient and trying it out, because they're not putting too much in. So that's one of the problems that people were having, is they were using too much of the cricket protein powder. So we've actually doing a series on YouTube at the moment as well, where we're showing people how to use the cricket protein powder, how to kind of adjust their recipes of their favorite home recipes that they already use with their families, and kind of switch out the kind of protein that they're using with cricket protein powder instead.
Yeah, absolutely. No, super interesting. And will you need to grow the team to execute your strategy over the next 12 months? And if so, what sort of key skills and talent do you require within the business?
Yeah, definitely. So we've just hired some sales staff, which is fantastic because it's taken a lot of work off me. And the sales staff are actually so passionate, and I should have done that probably about a year ago. But that's something that has been really helpful for us, because they're going into retailers and the retailers are arranging our products, which is absolutely fantastic. On the technical side of things, we'll be adding like a processing engineer in there to help with our robotics and artificial intelligence, as well as the food processing side of things. So that's more like of an operational thing as well. And then most of the other team members will be based around our production facility. So people on our insect farming side of things and on our food production side of things, which are kind of separate departments.
Yeah, interesting. And Darren here has mentioned that there are insect protein companies in the US and Canada. How will you differentiate your brand? Is it more promotion of circular production practices, etc.?
Yeah, so we've actually been in business longer than all of those companies. We were one of the first westernized insect protein farms in the world. How our business is different is because we have the science behind what we do. Most of those businesses were kind of business students, and they have recognized a need for this, and they've kind of built a team around a business. We've kind of grown our team from the bottom up and developed a business around the science. So that's kind of how we're a little bit different. That's why we kind of have an advantage, because all of our team have the flexibility to develop new products really, really quickly. We have the flexibility to change with the market as well. And because we haven't taken on a lot of investors in the past, it means that we still have a lot of equity available to raise capital to be able to expand quickly as well when we need to.
That's fantastic to hear. And yeah, I mean, it's of course, being in business as long as you have done, you must have refined a lot of your processes, practices, your insect farming. I mean, do you see that you're a few steps ahead in terms of efficiencies, with regards to how that's concerned?
Yeah, so you'll notice that a lot of the other companies as well, they're just kind of doing one thing. So you have businesses that are selling insect protein products, and they're more of a brand. Then we do have places that are just farms that they will sell their protein products in bulk to these food businesses. We do everything from farm to table under one roof. So we're making it a more sustainable product. We've developed our technology around the need of the insects, because we actually, because I'm an entomologist, so you kind of have this fascination with insects, and you want to make sure that they have everything that they need. We're not trying to push in technology that doesn't belong there. We've developed the technology based around the needs of the insects. So now that it's time for us to scale, we can do that quite confidently, because we've taken the time to actually develop the technology slowly instead of trying to rush things and not really having an understanding of the needs of the insects.
Yeah, great. No, fantastic. And Varaf has said, I heard about CH only recently, and I'm surprised because I do read about health and nutrition. Looks like CH and I are missing some marketing channels. So I guess in that regard, I mean, yeah, where do you see the business sort of, you've learned so much in the past. What are your marketing strategies moving forward after this capital raise?
Yeah, so it's kind of hard because we do have so many different areas that we can go into. So that's something that we'll definitely be looking at after the raise. So we'll be continuing to grow into retail, but we do have these new opportunities in non-food based ingredients and products as well, which we can move into as well. So it's kind of assessing the market, seeing where the market need is, and where we'll be pushing forward. But definitely when it comes to our retail brand, it's more continuing the consumer education piece, focusing on the sustainability and the nutritional aspects of the insect-based proteins. And we've been working really closely with the food retailers to actually educate their staff as well. So when people are asking about it, they actually have a script that they can use to help kind of sell the product. We have these fantastic new end stands as well. So instead of our pasta being in the pasta section and our chips in the chip section, we've actually got all of our products all in one place on the ends, which we've seen a 30% increase in sales using that technique as well, because the end cap sells a little bit of our story as well, and shows people all the different kinds of products that you can get.
Yeah, right. Do you have a link for that we can send around afterwards?
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Lorraine, that covers your question. So yeah, we'll include that in the follow-up email. Yeah, that's fantastic to hear. I think I'd love to ask because we've had a number of questions from everybody here, and of course, this is your business. You've understood so much about this business on the journey. Is there anything else that we haven't really touched on or discovered, not discovered, but really just discussed that you would love to talk about and really reflect on in the business and really just offer potential investors insights into?
Yeah. So even though we've been in business for 15 years, a lot of that has been kind of growing the market where there was no market before, making sure that all of our technologies have been developed really efficiently, and we've invested all of our profits back into our business to kind of help it grow, which has worked really, really well for us up until this point. But unfortunately, we're at our maximum production capacity, and we have all of these customers and all of this new business that wants to come on board with us, which is fantastic. But that means that now we're at a point where we need to raise capital to be able to meet the demand that's already there for our products. And we're doing this in a smart way. We're making sure that we've planned this out really, really efficiently. We know how to move the insects as well, so it's something that we can do in a very streamlined kind of way to take advantage of all this new business and kind of help our company move from a smaller business into a global food brand.
Yeah, fantastic. And Simone, your next question is exactly what I wanted to talk about next, which is the investment offer, which will be opening up next week. When that opens up, an offer document will be available for you to be able to download, check out, read the valuation of the company itself, and actually understand the terms as an ordinary investor that you get when you come on board. So effectively, under any crowdsource funding regime offer document, there is only one classification of shares, which is ordinary shares with voting rights, and everybody gets them. So everybody's getting the same type of share, and everybody's getting it at the same price. Now, with the offer opening next week, you will receive early access if you've expressed interest to invest. I can imagine almost everybody on this link or on this webinar will have expressed interest to invest, but I will send around the link afterwards in case anybody hasn't. Is there anything else that you wanted to add to that too, Sky?
No, I think I'm good. I talked a lot then, so
Yeah,
hopefully that all
that's
made sense.
absolutely true. And I really just wanted to thank everybody here today for your questions, your insights into the business, Sky. This has been so fantastic to learn so much more. If we do have any final questions, we're happy to take them. Otherwise, I think that we've gotten a huge amount of value out of this session, and I just wanted to thank everybody who's here. Fantastic. All right. Well, look.
Thank you so much, everybody, for coming. And yeah, we're always available if you've got extra questions after you read the offer document and you have some more questions that you have, then definitely feel free to email them through.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, everyone. Take care.